Welcome to the Open Forum in the Villages, Florida podcast. In this show we talk to leaders in the community, leaders of clubs and interesting folks who live here in the Villages, to give perspectives of what is happening here in the Villages. We hope to add a new episode most Fridays at 9 a.m. We are a listener-supported podcast. You can become a supporter for as little as $3 per month, or you can choose to pay more. To become a supporter, go to openforuminthevillages.com and click on Support in the black box. There will be shoutouts for supporters in episodes. In Season 4, we have made some dramatic improvements and changes. First is a clarification of the podcast's title. It is Open Forum in the Villages, Florida, to make clear that this is a regional show, independently produced for folks who live in Central Florida and the Villages areas. Second is a dramatic increase in the use of AI in the creation of each episode. These include a transcript of each show. Please understand that there may be errors inserted by the AI that may not be caught before the transcript is published. However, this is a dramatic step forward. We will now include chapter markers for each show. The show description text will be AI generated. In fact, the show's announcers are now all AI voices, including me, Emily. Hope you enjoy.
This is Mike Roth. I'm here with Alex Santoriello.
Oh, nice to be here, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Great. Alex, I know you've had a good reputation here in the Villages in the performing arts. Why don't you tell our listeners what you did before you got here to the Villages and where you came from?
Immediately before I came to the Villages, I lived in Barbados. I owned a nightclub. It was a piano bar and restaurant. We served sushi and had a teppanyaki table, so it was all kind of, show. As you could say.
Right. And did you play the piano in the piano bar?
No, only the one song. So
Alex, did you play the piano in the piano bar?
I played the piano. I played Piano Man almost every night that I was in the bar. People actually thought that I played piano because of that. But in truth, I only play one song by heart, and that's Piano Man.
Okay, that's good. And before Barbados, where were you?
In New York. I owned and operated the only parasailing company in New York City history. And I actually did it for the purpose of trying to fly aerial advertising banners around the city. But I ended up getting entangled with New York City for a long period of time. And so that actually, the business ended same time as the World Trade Center came down. And went back. I had been operating in the Hudson River, so I couldn't do that anymore.
Right.
And I ended up going to Barbados again for the third time, where I had been doing concerts every year. And I met a person, I met a girl, and moved there. That's how I got to Barbados.
Okay, good. And I understand you fly a plane, too. How did you, a fella in show business...
How do I fly it?
No. How did you get involved with flying? I mean, it's a kind of different art form, in my opinion.
Very interesting. Flash Gordon represents two very important things in my life. First of all, the idea of exploration and flying. And the other thing was fabulous music. I obviously loved the old serial, the one Larry Buster Crabbe was in, from the old days, the serial.
Buster Crabbe was the hero.
I was enamored with that in the Buck Rogers series. But,
Ming the Merciless was the villain.
He was great. Ray Middleton, I think, is his name. One day, my father came down into the rec room. It was a Sunday. Flash Gordon was on Sunday for like a half an hour, and I turned it on, and my father came down and said, "You're not watching this crap." And he went to go put the stereo on, the hi-fi.
Right.
Didn't have stereo back then. So he goes to put a record on, and I storm off to my room, and I'm up there like brooding, really I'm not happy about this. And all of a sudden I hear the Flash Gordon music come on. And I go, he's relented. So I run down and I plop my butt in front of the television, and the screen is black. And it was my first realization that it was the music really that propelled the whole story. And it was all the old classics. So they were all public domain. Nobody had to pay any money for them. They just used the pieces and recorded them for the serials. And I said, that was my first connection, that music was so amazing. And
powerful.
It was my connection to flying as well. But
okay.
Sky King didn't hurt.
Sky King, that was a good one too.
And my father was in the Air Force. So we had pictures of planes and things like that.
When was the first time you got into a cockpit?
Into the cockpit?
Yeah.
1976, when I started to learn how to fly.
Did you do it as a hobby or as a business?
No, I did it because I wanted to learn how to fly.
Okay.
I had wanted to become a helicopter pilot, but I was told I couldn't do it because I had signed a bonus agreement to be combat arms. So I was stuck. So I couldn't do that. So I learned to fly on post at the flying club.
Okay.
And it was only $800. Remember, that was when fuel was like 25 cents a gallon or something like that. And the planes only cost you like $19 to rent for everything.
For an hour, yeah.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And I learned to fly in Kansas, where if something went wrong, I could land anywhere, because there's hardly any trees out there. Sorry.
Where did you learn to fly again?
Kansas.
Oh, in Kansas.
Fort Riley, Kansas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so everything was flat.
Pretty much. Very few trees, It's like, okay, we're going to give this property one tree. You can have two. You can negotiate. Maybe next year you can get a little seedling and, you can grow one of your own. But there's not a lot of trees out there.
Yeah.
No, pretty flat.
Yeah. When I was old enough to think about it, I bought one of those Microsoft Flight Simulator games and discovered that, it was real easy to take off.
Oh.
But I crashed 100% of the time.
Well, landing is difficult. Landing is the most difficult part of the whole process. That's when you as a flight instructor, you go out there and you say, what are you going to accomplish today? I'm not going to let my student kill me. Very simple. You can do a lot of things up in the air, but when you get close to the ground, things get, you have your hands you're sitting with your hands underneath your butt, ready to grab the wheel any moment, but you don't want to really be up there like with your hands on your lap going, okay. You don't want to look like you're anticipating that the student is going to try and kill you this time around,
So you're a rated flight instructor as well.
Yeah.
And that means you have instrument ratings too.
I do.
Okay. What's the longest flight you've ever taken? Charles Lindbergh question.
No, actually, I was on tour with Cats, and I had rented a plane that I was flying. I had it for about 4 months, from city to city, and I would fly Cats from city to city, or fly back to home, back to New York City, for the weekend, for we had a day and a half off. And I had one show in Newfoundland, in St. John's. And it was, if I remember, it was a 5-hour flight from St. John's, Newfoundland to St. John's, New Brunswick. Yeah. And then from St. John to Teterboro, where my home airport was, another 4 hours. And of course, we started around, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So we didn't get to New York until 4 in the morning.
Oh.
It was long.
Brutal.
It was long. And on approach, the whole thing was fogged in. And
sure, it wouldn't be easy.
No. And I'm coming in. It was beautiful. It was very smooth because it was like a low-lying cloud layer, but couldn't see the ground. So you had to land on instruments. And so as I'm shooting the final approach, it's like I have it on autopilot, and I'm thinking, okay, you're going to do all the job right now. And it coming up to the final approach course where you got to turn left. The plane is supposed to turn left, well, it doesn't. And it's getting ready to go outside of the range. It's like it's got like a 10-degree range, one side or the other of the localizer line. And if you go either side, you're supposed to abort and go back out to the VOR and do another thing and
do another pass.
Man, I'm in 9 hours flying an airplane. I don't want to do this. So I grabbed that plane, turned it over on its side, and I said, "You are landing right here." Never pegged the marker, and it was a beautiful thing.
Well, you had a lot of experience by that point in time. And you became a boat captain. That's also a licensed occupation or requirement, isn't it?
Correct, yeah. I actually have a U.S. Coast Guard master's license, a 100-ton license, with auxiliary sail and towing, things like that. And I also have a United Kingdom license, a 200-ton yacht master license, and I'm commercially qualified to operate vessels anywhere in the world for hire. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. How often do you do that every year?
I did 8 deliveries last year. This year, I think I only did 3 or 4. It's a short season because the granddaughter's in town. And so we cut the season short so we could go off to Dollywood this last week. So, yeah.
Okay. And you're still doing the boat captain thing. That's a perpetual license?
No, I have to keep so many days on the water over a period of time. And yeah, so you continue to renew it. You take a medical exam. And same thing for the pilot's license. Every 2 years I have to redo my written exam for flight instructor.
So you learned about power of music from watching or listening to Buster Crabbe music on Flash Gordon. How'd you get into show business the first time?
Well, there was an audition in high school for Fiddler on the Roof, and people said, well, why don't you audition? Because I was in like the chorus, and so I went and auditioned, and I got the part. Muffle the Tailor.
Muffle the Tailor.
Muffle. I learned some really valuable things, but, just basic stuff like stand still. And if you don't stand still, I'll nail your feet to the floor. And don't fig leaf, don't put your hands in front of yourself.
Right.
A couple basic rules, and I ended up getting the part, and then that was one show, and then next year I got another one, and I got another one. But I'll never forget the kid that I got the part, rather than him getting it, said to me, "Break a leg."
Mm-hmm.
And I went home to my mother, and I went, "The kid is horrible." I said, "He's so upset that, I got the part that he told me to hopes I break a leg." And my mother says, No, that's not what he means. He means good luck. You know what break a leg means?
Stage talk.
I know, but do you know where it comes from?
No, I don't know where it comes from.
It's like, things like you hear people say merde, which in French means shit.
Okay.
And people say, well, why do you say merde? Well, you don't want to tell a dancer, break a leg. Break a leg comes from the old days when they used to slam the chairs on the ground rather than clap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Break a chair leg.
Yeah, break a leg. That means they're so excited about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you have any show business experiences that you had before you came to the Villages that you'd like to share with our audience?
Good or bad?
Both types.
I've been very blessed. I managed to break into Broadway as an actor, as a singer, really.
As a singer.
And an actor. Fortunately, I always felt that the show business is very cliquish. Everybody knows so many people. So it's very rare when someone new gets the opportunity to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt really lucky because they were out-of-towners. It was Trevor Nunn and John Caird from the Royal Shakespeare Company from England.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't have this set clique like most of the American directors who have been here a long time. So I was really lucky. I think that was a major reason that I was fortunate enough to get cast in the original company of Les Mis on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I was really lucky because I was born with a voice.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly wasn't ever very disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
You
didn't take singing lessons?
No.
And let's take a quick break here and listen to a Alzheimer's tip from Dr. Craig Curtis. Dr. Curtis, I've heard that exercise can help your brain. What type of exercises should people be doing?
Well, the good news is it doesn't take a lot of heavy exercise to make the brain healthier. Right now, the U.S. government recommends approximately 150 minutes per week, so 30 minutes, 5 days a week, of a moderate intensity exercise, such as walking. So something as simple as walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, can improve your brain health.
With over 20 years of experience studying brain health, Dr. Curtis's goal is to educate the Villages community on how to live a longer, healthier life. To learn more, visit his website, craigcurtismd.com, or call 352-500-5252 to attend a free seminar.
What year did you get to
December 2014, I brought my wife Karen's and my boat up from Barbados and delivered it to St. John's, Madeira Beach, over there on the west coast, and parked it up there. And then came and moved into the Villages, moved all of our stuff in, came beginning of 2015.
How did you hear about it, the Villages?
My dad lived here.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
My dad and my mom lived here. My mom had passed a couple years before, and I figured I'd go up and ruin the rest of my father's life, which apparently I've done a very good job of.
Okay. And after you got here, you started producing shows.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate.
What shows have you done here in the Villages?
Let's see. The first one I did was Man of La Mancha with Joan Napton, who was my partner for the last 7 years. And we just actually did the show again last past March.
Okay. I thought you did that more than once.
Yeah, we did it. It was the first show we did together in a long time. So.
What other shows did you do?
Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, My Fair Lady, Sweeney Todd, Grease, Mamma Mia, West Side Story, which brings us to our next show, which is going to be Grumpy Old Men.
And why Grumpy Old Men?
Well, Grumpy Old Men is...
it's the Villages. We got Grumpy Old Men.
It seems very well suited. It's a very funny story. It's a touching story. It was a very popular movie. And ironically enough, the people who are involved in the show are both friends of mine. The fellow whose idea it was originally, Jeff Gardner, he was kind enough to let me couch surf for quite a while at his apartment in New York while he was actually getting this underway as a producer. And he put all of his money and his heart and his soul into it, and he brought on board another really good friend of mine, Neil Berg, to compose the music. And Neil brought Nick Meglin on, who was the editor from Mad Magazine back in the old days, and Dan Ramis to do the book, who's a really terrific playwright. So the three of them are credited now with the show that's been very successful across the country. It's a lovely show. It's really well written.
How many songs are there?
I don't know, 17,
Around 17
18,
songs?
I don't know. It's like a normal musical.
Normal musical. So it's about 2.5 hours long?
I hope not.
How long do you think it's going to be?
I hope it's going to be, I don't know. You know what? It might be 2:15, 2.5, maybe less. I like to try and bring them in as fast as I can. You got to keep the pace of the show up. I'm a big stickler for trying to have scene changes very, very quick. One of the challenges with Grumpy Old Men is that there's a lot. It's very cinematic, so it goes from scene to scene, jump, 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 and how you're going to change those scenes and keep the thing so that the pace of the show moves, so that by the time the next scene starts, you still remember what happened in the last scene. You know, I was like, oh, but the scene change was so entertaining, I forgot. We do it. I'm sorry. Sometimes they're like that, A
little bit of improvisation during scene changes.
Oh, it's always great because, sometimes they video these things and you see like somebody in costumes walking across the stage. And of course they happen to just be in the spotlight and they walk across and it's like, and they do the obvious. Don't just skirt across, but when you do, you realize you're in the spotlight, turn, wave, and keep going.
Yeah, great spotlight people have the light off or the aperture closed.
No, it was actually on someone else downstage at the time. But the costume piece had to get to the other side of the stage. So, so I guess Les Mis was my greatest showbiz experience because it was such an amazing work. Groundbreaking, if you will.
I understand you were with Cats, too.
I did the tour of Cats.
How long were you with Cats?
A year, man. A year on the road playing Gus the theater cat. I have played in my time every possible part. Oh boy, have I ever.
Is there any musical or show that you've been in that you wish you hadn't taken the gig?
Oh, not that I can think of. I'm really good at putting things out of my mind that are disturbing. Most of my experiences have been really great. One of the coolest things in my life is that my sister wrote a Broadway musical. She wrote the book, music, and the lyrics for the show. Yeah, Tale of Two Cities. She took it from Dickens and adapted it. And so that's probably one of the...
Didn't have to pay him royalties, huh?
No, that was exactly why I was chosen. But I had the privilege of working on that with her from the beginning. And finally it made it to Broadway, but unfortunately it made it there at a terrible time from the economic standpoint. It's 2008. And it was a nightmare at that particular point. So, but it's still playing all over the place around the world. And
So picking up on the idea of Grumpy Old Men, when is that going to be available for tickets?
Well, August 16th, the show goes on sale.
And that's through the Village's box office?
Yeah, online or at the box office.
And what are the performance dates for our audience? 25,
26, and 27 October.
Okay. And putting your prestidigitator's hat on and looking into the future.
Press what hat?
Prestidigitation, Looking into the future. What shows do you think you might be involved with here in the Villages beyond the Dirty Old Men?
Well, I can tell you, partner, that No, stop. No, don't go down that road. I know that we're going to be doing Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. KC Productions is going to be doing Dirty Rotten Scoundrels in March. And, of course, Pro-Am Productions will be doing its Carols by Candlelight again, beginning of December. Something I've done every year for 7 years. This will be the 7th year for Rotary. Rotary Club of the Villages Noon. And then I got a couple concerts coming up in January. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do with them yet. And then Scoundrels, and then a couple more concerts in April. And then I think we're going to do the Fantastics in May.
Oh, now that is a classic, fantastic show.
It is. It's got some great music people don't really remember. I mean, like things like "Soon it's gonna rain, I can feel it. Soon it's gonna rain, I can tell.
Yeah.
Soon it's gonna rain. What are we gonna do?" And it's things like "Try to remember the kind of September when life was old and oh so mellow." And so it's got great music and a great little story to it. And
First time I saw that, I saw it in Greenwich Village when I was going to college. Took my girlfriend out there for a date.
yeah,
And saw it in a little theater in Greenwich Village.
of course, Sullivan Street.
Yeah. And then it
There-
played at the Black Box here a couple of years ago.
Did it?
Yeah.
I can't recall if it did.
I remember seeing it,
Did
yeah.
it? Oh, okay, cool.
They did a
cool.
beautiful job.
Oh, I bet it's a perfect show for a Black Box.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's great. They have a lot of wonderful talent down there at the studio.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a great little operation.
So I saw Dirty Rotten Scoundrels on Broadway with John Lithgow. Mm-hmm. And something happened during the show which I thought was either ad-libbed or amazingly written. At the end of Act 1, two guys are sitting at a table talking and some stuff goes on and the curtain comes down on Act 1. And Act 2 begins. There's the same table and the same two guys sitting at the table. And Lithgow gets up from the table and talks to the audience and he says, "You know, I enjoyed that scene so much. We're going to do it again." And they repeat the last scene of Act 1 at the beginning of Act 2. Is that written in or was that an ad-lib?
Probably.
Probably an ad-lib?
No, probably written in.
Probably written in.
There are cues, you know.
Cues?
Yeah, sliding cues, sound cues, and things like that. So everybody would have to be on the same page in order to accomplish that. So
Okay, the playbook for the show.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be written in.
But the way he did it, it seemed...
It's not like a live concert where you go, "Hey, I really like that. You want me to do that song again? Come on, band, let's do it."
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
like, make those lights good. You know, no, it's a little bit different, I think. I'm sure it's written in. I have to take a look at the script now that you mention it to me.
Because I thought that was just phenomenal. And the audience loved it.
Don't. I think we should edit that out so that everyone will think that I am brilliant when it happens and go, "Oh my God, that was so cool."
Well, you'd have to take a quick read on the script and call me in the next couple of days and say whether or not it was an ad-lib or a real thing in the script.
There'll be a disclaimer at the end of this anyway.
And what will the disclaimer say?
I have no idea, but they better have a good one.
Oh, I don't know how to write a
I
disclaimer.
don't know. So far, this is pretty tame. This
This is
interview.
much better. This is much better.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. I am here to satisfy your desires.
Okay, and keep our noses clean.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah,
I had to explain to my grandchild that word, S-H-I-T, is not a bad word. It means ship high in transit. In the old days, they used to put things down in the hold that potentially would get wet. And when they got wet, they would sort of, turn gaseous. And when somebody would get down there because they didn't have electric lights, they would go down there with a torch.
and it would blow.
And the whole thing would blow.
Oh.
Okay, so they started to put S-H-I-T. And so people would say, "Put the shit up there." I mean, I'm just telling you, this is where the word originates. It's got nothing to do with poo-poo. I don't know how it got to that point. I'm sorry, let me get back on the rails.
Yeah, that part's going to wind up in the toilet.
That's too bad, because that was good.
That was a good
That
piece.
was fun. I think it should
Yeah.
stay.
I'll take your word for it. Alex, thanks for joining us today on Open Forum in the Villages, and I'm sure all of our listeners will show up to fill the house at Grumpy Old Men.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you having me on. Take care.
Remember, our next episode will be released next Friday at 9 a.m. Should you want to become a major supporter of the show or have questions, please contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. This is a shout out for supporters Greg Pangian, Tweet Coleman, Dan Capellan, Ed Williams, Alvin Stenzel, and major supporter Dr. Craig Curtis at K2 in the Villages. We will be hearing more from Dr. Curtis with short Alzheimer's tips each week. If you know someone who should be on the show, contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. We thank everyone for listening to the show. The content of the show is copyrighted by Roth Voice 2023, all rights reserved.